This is one of the most fun builds that I have tried on Avowed, and I didn't think that it was that amazing to have a regular monk, a regular fighter on this kind of game, on this type of game. One aspect that I just love about this type of build, which we'll discuss into the skill tree, is that it has the benefit that you're not necessarily going to have to be looking out for skills, for materials to upgrade your weapons, because your weapons you upgrade them with skills. That's what I was that's what I was trying to say. So this is a build perfect for someone that doesn't want to do that much exploration, because you're not going to require that many things to get things going in here. Your weapons are going to level up as you level up, and the cool thing about that is that you're always going to be on the same level. I am a completionist. I have been playing this game as a completionist with different types of builds, and I can tell you that many a time I just wasn't able to keep up with the level of the enemies. Yes, I was able to fight them because of the build synergy and the stats and soft caps and hard caps and what have you, but rarely did I ever manage, even while doing the 100% of exploration, rarely did I ever manage to be on the same level of the enemies that I was fighting. I was regularly one level below the enemies that I'm fighting. In here, you're always going to have the same level quality of your weapon. One other cool thing about this is that it just feels so amazing when you hit something with your fist. The force of the powerful blow, you can feel that on your character, and that's one of the things that I cannot praise enough about this game, the animation and the detail to the feedback. When you punch something, you feel that you're actually hitting something with force, and it's so ever so satisfying. Another cool thing about this build is that, well, as you were able to see, or as you are seeing right now, the stagger potential on this thing, it's just monstrous. So you're going to not only be staggering the enemies, stun locking them because of how fast you attack with your fist, but you're also going to be erasing the stun bar quite a bit, and you're going to be dealing that much more damage because of that. The only downside that I would see about this build is that it doesn't have AoE, so you do have to be focusing on single targets specifically. That's one of the bummers, that's one of the downsides of this build, but yeah. Little word from friend of the channel, Factor75. I could never stress out how much growing up and being independent clashes with my daily activities, with work, editing, recording, and all that kind of stuff. What the world of adulthood requires of you to survive. Well, with Factor75, you have so much needed relief. We need to sustain a healthy diet, and often healthy diet is associated with not so delicious food. Well, far from it. With Factor75, you have chef, restaurant, cook healthy meals, delicious and tasty, that are prepared and ready to go in just 2 minutes. No longer do we need to spend countless hours on groceries preparing the food and hoping that in our haste we did not spoil the food and have to bear through it. Not only that, but we're not hurting our wallet in here, since Factor75 it's pretty cheap considering how much do we actually have to spend on getting the ingredients and all the stuff that we use to cook our meals. Also, your support to the channel means the world, means everything to me. With it, I can continue creating videos for you, content for you, and if you want to help out, feel free to use the link in the video description, the pinned comment, or scan the QR code that you can see throughout the rendition of this little small talk that I have for you. Mark the video. So, let's talk about first the abilities that we are going to be choosing, and the quintessential part of everything. We are necessarily going to have to be taking the Iron Fists. And this is what I told you that I love about this skill, that you don't have to be looking out for upgrade materials for your weapons, because your weapons are going to be your fists, and you're always, as long as you're leveling up properly, you're getting your decent levels, you are going to be able to get your fists all the way towards legendary quality. We're also going to be furthermore improving our weapon with some type of enhancement, enchantment with one of the items that we're going to be using, but we'll discuss about that later on. Another thing that I like to use with this build is I do like to use heavy armor, because yes, you are going to be up close on the face of the enemy, and for you to be able to attack even more, you do need to decrease the stamina penalty for medium and heavy armor, depending on whether you're going to be using medium or heavy armor. There's some really cool medium armors in the game that synergize very well with this for this particular purpose, for this particular build. I'm not using anything specific, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. And then I like to have the constant recovery, because yes, I mean, like I said, we are tanks. We need to recover things in here. We're also going to be focusing on critical hit chance quite a little bit, so increasing the damage of your critical hits is also going to be an amazing part of this build. And essentially, ideally, this is what you are going to need to get established. One thing that I like to use is the Barbaric Shout, because we are going to increase our stagger potential quite a bit with some item that we're going to be using later on. But this guy right here, I like it, because you not only stagger on AoE scenario kind of the enemies that you have around you, but you're also going to deal higher stun damage, meaning that you're also going to be able to deal that much more damage whenever you stun the enemies, and whenever you're fighting things that have shields or things like that, you cannot be stopped. And for you to continue the attack, if you are doing like this left and right, left and right, left and right, left and right jabs with your fists, that is going to be all the much more better if you're using the Barbaric Shout, because this allows for your attacks not to be interrupted, which is very useful. Then we are going to need a little bit of toughness. I like to take this right in here, because we're not going to be taking any points into Constitution. And then finally, I like to close up with Inspiring Triumph, because this allows for your the rest of your characters to be alive. You can, this is clear out, it's a bit useful, but it costs too many essence, and I like to use my essence into my Barbaric Shout, and we're not going to have that much of essence. So this, as it is right now, this should get you established for the build that you see me showcasing in here. If you want to add this or that to here or there, you can also increase charge, because this is amazing for mobility. This right here, this is perfect. So the stats. If you have not watched my video where I showcase you about soft caps and hard caps and what have you, I highly advise for you to do so, so that you can understand a little bit better what is it that I am doing in here. So essentially, you will see those blue numbers that I have around here and there, and those are stat increases that I get from various sources. We'll get to that a little later in a little while. But essentially, there's like some kind of a soft cap or hard cap into your stats, and the stats that I want for you to focus as you level up with this character is going to be first Might. Get 10 points into Might for extra 25% more damage. And then we're going to raise our Perception all the way to 10, because that is going to give us a 25% critical hit chance. And then you're going to increase your Dexterity all the way to level 10, because that is going to increase your attack speed, and that is very much in your interest to have as much attack speed as possible. And these are the three main stats that you're going to be focusing on. You can later on place points into Constitution if you like, Intellect, Resolve. Resolve is not going to be that needed, because usually your fists do not use that much stamina, but if you want to be a little bit more spammy, then yes, Resolve is one more point that you're going to be using in here. And then Intellect is going to allow you to spam your Barbaric Shouts quite a bit more, so that's nice. Ideally, that's what our character is going to be looking like. The weapons are going to be your fists. You're not going to need anything at all, and means that you're not going to be spending upgrade materials to upgrade your fists. One thing that you do need to have in mind is that you're going to need the sorry pause. I am going to try to have linked on the video description a location for every item that I'm showcasing you right in here, so that you can later on get it. I can tell you that as of right now, as I showed you with the build, with the abilities and the character stats, that should be more than enough for you to have something very much the same as you can see on screen whenever I'm doing my gameplay showcase. But I can tell you that, for example, the Xori Paws, which is a bomber, you're not going to get them until you get until the third region of the game. This is going to basically somewhat turn your already legendary fists into somewhat give them like an enchantment, like you would have an enchantment, because it's going to provide you 15% more stun, but also your attacks are going to deal 10% more bonus fire damage, which is just extra little DPS that you do not need, but it's very much useful, and it gives you that extra little spiciness on your attacks. So that's kind of nice. For my boots, I'm not using like anything really interesting. I'm just using stuff that gives me stats, and that's what I want to talk to you about, because as you level up, I'm not going to be able to give you every single little trinket or item that you're going to be using as you level up. So my advice is that you, every time that you find a ring, every time that you find a trinket, always use something that gives you either might, perception, or dexterity. That way, you do not have to be spending that many points in here for you to be able to establish the character as I have it right here. And you will notice that right here, because for example, I could be using this, but I am not using this. This gives me +3 into perception. I'm using the painter's brush, gives me a +5% critical hit chance, which is kind of nice. You can get this on a quest on the second region of the game, I believe. If not, it is going to be linked in the video description. But for example, we have the Berserker's Ring in here that it gives me Constitution, but you could also be using something like the Ranga's Clarity that gives me Perception, which is a stat that I am very much using. You could also using the Delver's Caution, which is going to give you Dexterity. Any ring, any trinket, anything that gives you Resolve, that gives you Perception, well, not Resolve, anything that gives you Might, Perception, or Dexterity, that's what you want to be using for rings and trinkets. Like I said, linked in the video description, I am going to give you some very strong recommendation for either rings, for trinkets that you can be gathering as you level up. But ideally, this is how the build works. It's very simple, it's very powerful. You essentially hit things on the face until they die. You have lots of stagger potential, you have lots of damage and then fire damage, and then also you are going to not necessarily have to be exploring out that much. If that's what I want to stress out as much as I can possibly can. If you feel that you are under-leveled by the rarity of the gear that the enemies have in front of you, and that you feel that you need to explore a little bit more, but you're somewhat not that kind of, you do not have like that kind of playstyle where you are looking for every single chest, every single piece of loot that you can find in the world. If you're struggling with that, this build is going to alleviate that, because this doesn't require exploration for you to level up your weapon. You are still going to have to require to level up your armor, and that's not going to be like that much of a big issue. Anyways, if you like the content, like and very super appreciate it. Not you there, you are just me. Anyways, if you like the content, like and very super appreciate it. Not you there, you're a gorgeous, beautiful person. You're a gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, you're in Discord, and beautiful and goodbye.